Don't believe this success myth. How many times have you heard that the key to achieving anything great is to wait for the perfect opportunity, the ideal moment, or the right circumstances? We've all been there, waiting for the stars to align before taking action. But what if I told you that success isn't about waiting for perfection or having everything fall into place? What if the real key is something entirely different, something much more grounded in reality and action? In today's video, I'm going to share with you the core principles of pragmatism philosophy and how they can help you navigate life's challenges, make better decisions, and create meaningful change without falling for the myths that keep you stuck. Ready to stop waiting for the perfect moment? Let's dive in. Number 1. Focus on what works. Life moves fast, doesn't it? We've all experienced those moments where we throw ourselves into something, be it a project, a career, a relationship, and it feels like we're giving it our all, only to see little or no progress. You might feel happy, thinking you're on the right track, but deep down, frustration creeps in when you realize that your efforts aren't bringing the results you expected. You wonder, what went wrong? It's easy to get lost in the overwhelming noise of advice, quick-fix solutions, and methods that promise success in an instant. But what if the key isn't working harder or following some perfect plan? What if the key lies in focusing on what actually works? Pragmatism teaches us a simple but powerful truth. Success comes from a constant process of trial, adjustment, and focus on what truly works. It's about observing what gets results and building on it. Instead of clinging to outdated beliefs or seeking perfection, we need to embrace flexibility. This isn't about idealism, it's about real, tangible outcomes. Think about it. How many times have you kept pushing a particular strategy or path, convinced it was the right one, only to find that it wasn't getting you anywhere? Now think back to the moments when you shifted gears, tried something new, and noticed a difference. That's the heart of pragmatism. It's not about finding a perfect solution. It's about adapting and identifying what works in your unique context. I'm sure many of you can remember a time in your life when you followed a plan that didn't seem to make sense at first. Maybe it was in school, when you tried a study method everyone recommended, but it didn't click with your learning style. Or maybe it was when you were trying to break a bad habit and you realized that the common methods weren't for you. But when you finally found something that worked for you, it clicked. That moment of clarity, where you realized that success isn't about doing everything right, but about finding what works for you on your own terms. This doesn't just apply to personal growth or achievements. It's a powerful tool in relationships too. Think about how many times you've tried to make a relationship work by following advice that wasn't suited to the people involved. You may have thought, if I just do this, or if I say that, they'll understand. Yet over time, you found that it wasn't what either of you needed. Then, something changed. You started to notice the small adjustments that made a bigger impact. The same applies to everything, whether it's work, friendships, or even simple daily tasks. Focus on what gets results, not on what you think should work. Number 2, act to shape your reality. Think back to a time when you were completely in control of a situation. Maybe you were preparing for a big event or had to make an important decision. There was something about that moment when you realized that your actions were driving the outcome. You were creating the reality around you, and you could feel it. It's exhilarating, right? The feeling that you can shape your destiny through what you do, not just what you think. But then there are those moments when it seems like the world just isn't cooperating. It feels like you're caught in a whirlwind of circumstances that you can't control. It's easy to give in to the idea that your actions don't matter, that the world is too unpredictable, too harsh to let you make any meaningful difference. But this is where pragmatism offers us a different perspective. It encourages us to act, to shape our reality, no matter the external challenges. There's a lot of focus in our society on passive consumption, watching others live out their dreams, scrolling through curated success stories, imagining ourselves in those same positions. But the truth is, action is what creates the reality we live in. Every decision you make, every step you take, can influence the path you're on. And if you don't like the reality you're seeing, it's not just about wishing for a change, it's about actively doing something to create that change. When we act, we're not just responding to the world around us, we're asserting our will over it, shaping it to reflect our intentions. Let's dive into a moment from your past. Can you recall a time when you decided to take action? Maybe you started that business, or you took a leap of faith and made a career change. Perhaps you ended a toxic relationship or began a fitness journey. You didn't just think about what you wanted. You made moves, you took risks, and you shaped your reality. Even though things might not have turned out exactly as planned, those actions created a ripple effect, and the world around you started to shift in ways you never anticipated. Now think about the flip side. What happens when you don't act? When you stay stagnant, stuck in inaction, waiting for the right time or the perfect moment? It's easy to get caught in this mindset, especially when life throws us curveballs. But remember, our reality doesn't just happen to us. We have the power to make it. Sometimes the smallest action is enough to create the momentum that shifts everything else. Whether you're writing that first page of a book or sending that email you've been putting off, the act of doing, even in small doses, begins to shape the world around you. Number 3. Truth is flexible. We all crave certainty, don't we? The desire to know the truth, to find the answers to life's big questions, this longing for clarity is part of human nature. But as you grow older, you begin to realize something important. Truth isn't always as fixed and unchanging as we want it to be. As you reflect on your life, think about the things you once believed to be absolute truths. Maybe you thought a specific career path was the only way to success, or that love had to look a certain way to be real. Over time, those ideas might have shifted. Why? Because you saw things differently, experienced new situations, and evolved. That's the flexibility of truth. It adapts, just like we do. Pragmatism tells us that truth isn't an absolute concept to be discovered, but rather something that is shaped by our experiences, actions, and context. The truth you cling to today might be different from the truth you hold tomorrow. This doesn't mean truth is relative or meaningless. It means that the way we understand truth is always evolving, based on what works for us in the moment. The way you view a problem today might not be the same as the way you approach it tomorrow, and that's okay. In fact, it's not just okay, it's necessary. This realization can stir up a bit of nostalgia. Remember how certain you were of things when you were younger, how you thought you knew the answer to everything. You probably had a set idea of what the truth was, what success meant, what happiness looked like, what relationships should feel like. But as time passed, you started questioning these ideas, reshaping your own definition of what's true. Maybe you thought love was meant to be a grand romantic gesture, only to discover that love, in its most genuine form, is about small moments and quiet support. Maybe you believed that career success was only about climbing the corporate ladder, but then you found fulfillment in a completely different path. This shifting nature of truth doesn't make it any less real. It makes it more alive, more dynamic. Truth is flexible. It moves with us, changes with us, and adapts to our unique journey. So instead of clinging to rigid one-size-fits-all truths, why not embrace the flexibility of it? Don't be afraid to evolve your understanding as you grow and experience more. Let your truth change as your life does. Number 4, practical beats perfect. We all have dreams, don't we? The ideal version of ourselves, the perfect life we imagine in our heads. It's easy to get caught up in striving for that perfect vision, whether it's the dream job, the perfect relationship, or the flawless version of success. The idea of perfection is alluring, but it can also be paralyzing. How often have you delayed a project, a decision, or a goal, thinking, it's not perfect yet? How many times have you looked at a piece of work, a piece of art, or even yourself, and thought, I'll do it when it's perfect? The problem is that perfection is an illusion. It's a moving target that shifts just when you think you've reached it. So what happens when you stop chasing perfection? What happens when you focus on what's practical, what's real, what can be done right now? Pragmatism is rooted in the idea that progress comes not from chasing an unattainable ideal, but from focusing on what works in the real world. It's not about waiting for the stars to align or for the perfect moment to arrive. It's about making things happen with the tools you have in front of you. Perfection is often the enemy of progress. We get stuck in the details, in trying to make things flawless, and forget that action, any action, is what moves us forward. Think about it. How many times have you spent hours perfecting something only to realize that you could have achieved more by simply moving forward, learning as you go, and adjusting along the way? The quest for perfection can leave us paralyzed, second-guessing our every move. But when you shift your focus to the practical, to what's achievable in the here and now, you start to see real results. Practical beats perfect because it's rooted in reality. It's about taking action, learning from experience, and improving as you go. No matter how small the step, every practical move forward takes you closer to your goal. Reflect on a time when you stopped striving for perfection and just got to work. Maybe it was a side project or a decision you made that didn't have to be perfect, but needed to be done. Perhaps you created something that you initially felt wasn't good enough, but it turned out to be better than you expected because you focused on getting it done rather than on perfecting it. That moment, when you allowed yourself to move past perfectionism, is where the magic happens. It's where growth begins. And as you look back, you realize that the pursuit of perfection only held you back from achieving the things you truly wanted. Number 5. Small steps. Count. We live in a world that rewards big moves, the grand gestures, the major breakthroughs, the massive wins. It's easy to get swept up in the idea that success comes from those big, bold, transformative moments. We see the highlight reels of people achieving greatness, and we think that's the only way to make an impact. But in truth, most of our lives, our successes, our growth, come from small steps. Little by little, the accumulation of small efforts can add up to something much greater than any single leap forward. The power of small steps is often underestimated, but when we embrace them, we unlock a path to progress that is much more sustainable and within our control. Take a moment to think about how you've gotten to where you are today. Maybe you didn't get there in one giant leap. Maybe it was a series of small decisions that at the time didn't feel particularly significant, but looking back, you realize they were the foundation for everything that followed. This is the essence of pragmatism, recognizing that small, consistent actions are what lead to real change. Whether you're working on a fitness goal, learning a new skill, or pursuing a career, it's the small steps that compound over time and create lasting impact. It's easy to get caught in the idea that you need a major breakthrough, a big moment to validate your efforts. But as you grow older, you start to understand that the biggest breakthroughs often come from persistence, from showing up every day, and from making incremental progress. Each small step matters, Each small action is a brick in the foundation you're building. And even if it feels like you're moving slowly, remember that as long as you're moving forward, you're progressing. Maybe you've experienced this in your own life, when you took small, consistent actions and saw the cumulative effect. Maybe you started small by cutting out one bad habit, or by dedicating a few minutes each day to learning something new. Over time, you began to see results that you never thought possible. The small steps led to big changes. This is the power of pragmatism. It reminds us that we don't need to make giant leaps to create change. We just need to focus on the next small step and keep moving forward. Number 6, control what you can. Life can feel overwhelming at times. We live in a world that is constantly changing, constantly challenging us. External factors, circumstances, and the actions of others can seem like they're always outside our control. It's easy to feel powerless, especially when things aren't going the way we want them to. How many times have you found yourself stressing over things you can't change? How often have you felt frustrated by the unpredictability of life, by the things that are just outside your reach? It's a universal experience, a feeling of helplessness when we're confronted by forces beyond our control. But here's the empowering lesson pragmatism offers. Focus on what you can control. Instead of wasting energy on things you can't influence, redirect your focus to the areas where you can make a difference. It's a mindset shift that can change the way you approach life's challenges. Sure, there will always be things outside your control. How others react, unexpected circumstances, the weather. But there's always something you can control. Your response, your actions, your attitude. And by focusing on these, you reclaim your sense of agency in the world. Let's think about a time when life threw you a curveball. Maybe you lost a job or faced a personal setback. It's easy to get caught in the cycle of frustration, wishing things were different. But in those moments, what you can control is how you respond. How do you react to setbacks? How do you move forward when everything feels uncertain? The power lies in your response. By focusing on what you can control, you can shape your future, no matter how uncertain the present may seem. This approach doesn't mean ignoring the things you can't control. It means accepting them and focusing on what's within your grasp. When you take charge of what you can control, your actions, your mindset, and your decisions, you start to see that you have more power than you thought. The world may throw challenges your way, but the way you choose to respond can make all the difference. Number 7, beliefs need results. Have you ever held a belief so strongly that you were willing to fight for it? Maybe you grew up thinking certain things were just the way they were, some truths about the world, yourself, or others. You've held on to these beliefs because at some point they gave you comfort, certainty, and a framework for understanding the world around you. But what happens when those beliefs don't align with reality anymore? When they don't produce the results you expect? Do you keep holding on, or do you begin to question them? The core of pragmatism is about results. Does your belief actually lead to outcomes that improve your life? It's not enough to just hold a belief. It's about whether that belief works in the real world. And this doesn't mean you need to change your beliefs for the sake of fitting in with others or abandoning your values. What it means is that your beliefs should be practical. They should help you navigate the challenges you face and move you closer to your goals. If a belief doesn't lead to results, then it's time to reconsider it. This isn't about changing your values for the sake of convenience. It's about acknowledging that the world is constantly changing and your beliefs must adapt with it. Think about it. How many times have you held on to a belief just because it felt safe or familiar, but it didn't really lead you to the outcome you were hoping for? Maybe you thought a certain career path was the only way to succeed, or that a particular strategy would bring you happiness. But then, Over time, you realized that belief wasn't yielding the results you hoped for. That's when you start questioning it, trying a new approach, and seeing how your reality shifts when your beliefs evolve. You've probably experienced this shift at some point in your life. When you realized that a belief you once held didn't bring the results you expected. Perhaps you believed that if you worked hard enough, success would come automatically. But then you found that you had to work smarter, not harder. Or maybe you held on to an idea of what love should look like, only to find that the reality of love was much more complex and nuanced. These moments of realization are important because they remind us that beliefs should always be grounded in results, in reality. If what you believe doesn't help you make better decisions or create positive outcomes, then it's time to reevaluate. Number 8. Adapt to challenges. Life never goes exactly as planned, does it? We've all had moments where things didn't go the way we thought they would. Maybe you had a dream job lined up, only for an unforeseen circumstance to throw everything off course. Or maybe you spent months or years preparing for a personal goal, only for an unexpected challenge to arise, throwing all your plans into question. In those moments, it's easy to feel defeated or frustrated. We've all been there. The weight of challenges can feel overwhelming, as though the world is conspiring against us. But here's the thing. Challenges are part of life. It's how we respond to them, how we adapt, that makes the difference. Pragmatism teaches us the value of flexibility. It's not about pretending that challenges won't arise or that we can control everything. It's about learning how to adjust when things don't go as planned. Adaptation isn't a sign of weakness or failure. It's a necessary skill for survival and growth. When life throws a curveball, you have a choice. You can resist it and stay stuck, or you can adapt and learn to work with it. This ability to adapt is where growth happens. Think back to a time when a challenge pushed you out of your comfort zone. Maybe it was a career change or a personal setback that forced you to reconsider your path. At first, you might have been resistant to the change, thinking it wasn't what you wanted. But over time, you likely began to realize that this challenge wasn't an obstacle. It was an opportunity to learn something new, to grow in ways you hadn't imagined before. Challenges push us to be resourceful, to rethink our approach, and to adapt to new circumstances. And when we do that, we become stronger and more capable. Adaptation is an essential part of pragmatism because it teaches us that life isn't static. The world around us changes constantly, and we have to be willing to change with it. Whether it's a shift in the job market, a new social dynamic, or an unexpected personal challenge, the ability to adapt is what keeps us moving forward. The key is to stay open-minded, to recognize that the road ahead might not always be straight, but that doesn't mean it's any less worth traveling. Number 9. Meaning comes from action. How often do we search for meaning? We search for it in our relationships, in our careers, in our hobbies. We want to understand our purpose, to feel like we're living lives that matter. It's a deep, existential question that can keep us up at night. We hear people talk about finding meaning in life, and we wonder, what does that even mean? How do I find it? We look for signs, for clarity, for that moment of revelation when we'll know exactly what we're supposed to do with our lives. But the truth is, meaning isn't something you find, it's something you create, and you create it through your actions. Pragmatism teaches us that meaning isn't something external. It's not something you stumble upon or wait for. It's built through the choices you make and the actions you take. Every decision, every step you take in your life has the potential to give your life meaning. Whether it's pursuing a career that aligns with your values, helping others, creating something new, or simply being present in the moment, meaning comes from action. It's in the doing, not the waiting. Think about a time when you felt most alive, most purposeful. It wasn't the moments when you sat around waiting for meaning to come to you. It was the moments when you were actively engaged in something that mattered to you. Maybe it was a project you were passionate about, a conversation you had that left you feeling connected, or a challenge you faced head-on. Those moments didn't come from waiting for the perfect circumstances. They came from action. Life is full of opportunities to create meaning, but only if you take action. Sitting back and hoping for meaning to find you is a passive approach that leads to disappointment. The moment you start engaging with the world around you, the moment you start making choices and taking steps, that's when meaning begins to emerge. Action is what breathes life into your purpose and allows you to see the significance of what you're doing. It's through the effort, the struggle, the creation, and the interaction with the world that meaning is found. And when you realize this, you stop searching for meaning and start living it. If you've made it this far, drop a thumbs up. That shows you're part of the 0.01% who actually stick with something and follow through. It's easy to get distracted and give up along the way, but you're different. You're here, and that means you're serious about making lasting changes in your life. Keep that momentum going, because consistency is key to turning the ideas we've talked about into real results. If you're ready to keep pushing forward, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Join our community and stay connected with content that can help you take actionable steps toward a better, more pragmatic life. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Take action today.